Audi needs a new team principal. Ferrari were already on track yesterday, whilst the rest of the paddock uses the break to develop and regroup. Oscar Piastri is telling you that McLaren cannot beat Mercedes yet. Jack Doohan is racing sports cars to stay sharp because Formula One doesn't have the space for him, and the Formula One Academy just changed their format. It's Thursday, the 2nd of April. Coffee Corner Motorsport, Espresso News. Let's go. Audi Formula One are now just 5 weeks into their debut season and they're already looking for a new team principal. As we know, Jonathan Wheatley left the team on March the 20th with immediate effect. The official reason given was personal. The paddock reason is Aston Martin. There are multiple reports that link Jonathan Wheatley to a team principal role at the Silverstone-based team, where Adrian Newey has decided to step back from the day-to-day duties to focus on the technical leadership and design of that troubled AMR 26. Now, Lawrence Stroll's statement after Jonathan Wheatley left Audi was actually really cryptic. It neither confirmed nor denied what was going on. Jonathan Wheatley is currently serving garden leave, and the clock is running on when we get that official announcement. It seems it's a case of when, not if. Now, in the meantime, Mattia Binotto is covering both roles for Audi. He's been very clear that this is not a long-term solution for the team. His exact words to the media at Suzuka was, "My main focus is at the factory base where we need to transform the team. I will need someone to support the team here at a race weekend." Now, Will Buxton on the Up to Speed podcast this week backed a name already inside the building. And that name is, of course, Allan McNish, 56 years old, currently Audi's young driver development coach. He's raced in Formula One, of course, in 2002 as part of the Toyota team. He's competed at Le Mans from 1997 to 2000 and again in 2004 to 2013. He's a BBC Formula One pundit, a former Audi Formula E team principal. Will Buxton's argument is pretty straightforward. Allan McNish knows the programme, he knows the culture, he knows the people, he knows the team. More importantly, he knows the politics inside Audi. It would, of course, mean no handover period, no learning curve, no garden leave. He could go straight into that role for the team. Now, Binotto has not confirmed any candidate at all, but what he did say is he confirmed that the search was active. The team currently sit 9th in the Constructors' Championship after 3 rounds, with an engine they've publicly acknowledged is significantly behind the benchmark. That leaves the new Audi team with 2 problems. Neither of those problems have a quick fix. Meanwhile, in Maranello, Ferrari were already on track yesterday at Mugello, running the SF25 under the test of the previous cars programme. Antonio Giovinazzi and Arthur Leclerc were sharing the car on day 1. Antonio Fuqua is completing the day 2 today. Now, this is just the start of an intensive programme for Ferrari. On April the 9th and April the 10th, the current SF26 will go to Fiorano for a 2-day artificial wet test for Pirelli. And then on April the 22nd, they scheduled in a filming day at Monza with Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton with updates planned for that car. Now, that is, of course, a 200-kilometre test. Planet F1 report that the Ferrari's choice of Monza is unlikely to be a coincidence for the team. It is the most demanding circuit on the 2026 calendar for, of course, energy management. And with Mercedes straight on advantage, the dominant story of the opening 3 rounds, the venue selection speaks for itself. Now, Lewis Hamilton said after the Japanese Grand Prix, it seems mostly on the straight, they seem to have a little bit more deployment, so less derated at the end of the straights than some of us have got. We've just got to work on trying to see how we can eke out more from our current engine. Now, Fred Vasseur was really direct about what Miami represents and the fact that all of the teams now face a development race. He went on record to say that everyone will be bringing innovations to Miami. A new championship will start there. 3 sessions, 1 target. Every team is now scrambling to close that gap before Miami with, of course, that enforced break. On to the current Constructors' champions, of course, McLaren. Oscar Piastri finished P2 in Suzuka. He led the race at the start. He actually managed to pull away from George Russell before, of course, that safety car handed everything to Antonelli in terms of the race strategy. Now, Oscar called it probably one of the best weekends in Formula One. He also calls second place as good as a win for McLaren right now. Considering the start of the season, that's not a surprise to anybody. But it also tells you where McLaren currently are. His exact words after qualifying, when asked about the gap, he said, "We clearly don't have the pace or the grip to match Mercedes still, but we are getting closer, which is the most important point." Now, after the restart, Kimi Antonelli managed to pull 13.2 seconds on Oscar Piastri in 25 laps. They, of course, had the same tyre, although Antonelli's was slightly newer tyres. Yes, Antonelli was in clean air, but that's the benchmark. That's the point. That is the number that McLaren are trying to chase before Miami. Now, Piastri is confident the development rate is there. We've also heard Zach Brown talk about having complete faith in the team from Woking. The question that is on everybody's lip is 5 weeks going to be enough time to close that meaningfully, especially when everybody else is concentrating on the same thing. Ferrari are being very public about how they're going to answer that with their track program. McLaren, they've not yet announced what they're doing to close that gap, but rest assured they are going to be doing everything they can to keep hold of their Constructors' Championship. We then come on to a driver who probably deserved better. Jack Doohan has a race seat for 2026. Now, this isn't in Formula 1, this is in the European Le Mans Series. He's going to be piloting Nielsen Racing's number 24 Oracle 07 Gibson LMP2 prototype alongside Roy Nissery and Edward Pearson. Now, as we know, Jack Doohan was dropped by Alpine after just 6 races last season when Franco Colapinto was promoted into his place. He is currently Haas's reserve driver for 2026. Now, this, of course, keeps him connected to the grid and in the conversation should a seat open up mid-season. And there is, of course, early speculation about Esteban Ocon's future in the team, considering the benchmark that Oliver Behrman's currently set for the team who has sat in P4 in the Constructors' Championship. But a reserve role does not give you race laps, it does not give you time on track, and a planned move to Super Formula, as we know, fell through after a disappointing test run. So endurance racing is where it is. Now, he's going to be first to tell you there's a lot to learn. It's going to be his first time in the prototype, first time in the car with a roof. He knows it, but his quote this week said absolutely everything. Jack Doohan said, "I'm very excited to be back racing. It's almost going to be 12 months since my last race." Just picture that, 12 months for a 23-year-old who started last season in Formula 1 before, obviously, that Alpine team made that swap. Now, the ELMS seat keeps him racing. It keeps him visible. It keeps him sharp. That reserve role for Haas, that keeps the Formula 1 door slightly ajar should Jack Doohan have the opportunity to step through that door. And now a bit of news outside of Formula 1. In a press release that was yesterday supplied to Coffee Corner Motorsport, F1 Academy has announced a new 3-race weekend format which will debut at round 2 in Montreal and return also in round 5, which is the Austin one. Now, the format introduces a brand new opening race alongside the existing reverse grid race and the feature grid race. So on those 2 rounds, there will now be 3 races over those weekends. Now, the fastest time will set the feature race grid as it normally does, and they will now take the second fastest time to set the opening race grid. There are going to be 4 points available in all 3 races, 1 point for fastest lap, no points for pole position during the qualifying. It also restores the 2026 calendar back up to 14 races following, of course, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix cancellation. Now, Susie Wolf, who's the managing director of F1 Academy, had this to say in the statement. She said, "Introducing the opening race at select round underscores our commitment to building a platform where the most talented can thrive by maximising competitive track time. As F1 Academy continues to grow both on and off the track, I am continually looking for ways to elevate our race weekends. I'd like to thank our promoters for their support and enthusiasm for this dynamic new format, which will deliver additional on-track action in Montreal and Austin and provide a compelling schedule for fans and drivers alike." Now, Delphine Biscay, who's the head of race operations, added, "The opening race gives us the opportunity to evolve the race weekend whilst protecting the sporting integrity of the series. By setting the grid using each driver's second fastest qualifying time, we're also adding another layer of strategy to the weekend. This approach also provides the flexibility to replace a postponed race if needed and allows us to make the most of any additional track time available on the Grand Prix weekend schedule." So, Audi are 5 weeks in and they're already rebuilding their leadership. Ferrari were back on track yesterday whilst everyone else is planning how to close that gap. Jack Doohan is racing prototypes to stay sharp because Formula 1 doesn't currently have a seat for him. And F1 Academy just gave its drivers more laps to prove themselves. The gap between opportunity and preparation is where careers are made or lost. Miami is a few weeks away now. This is today's Espresso News. Everything is linked in the description. I'll see you tomorrow.